everybody, it's me, Margaret, on a rainy day. But we're sitting outside anyway because the light's still better. Last week on my cast-off crew video, I showed you this square baby hat, and I just loved it. But I told you that I'd give you a tutorial, and then I thought about it and I said, it's really kind of simple. You really don't need a tutorial. But holding true to my word, here I am. Essentially, what you're doing is around, use a circular loom, your Addi Express, which is what I used here, my Addi King size, and then you seam up the top. Now if you knit a 3-needle bind off, or you may be more familiar with a Kitchener stitch, I'm going to provide links in the description box for videos on how to do these things. But I did do a 3-needle bind off, believe it or not. You know I'm not a knitter. And through that very awkward process, I learned what exactly was going on. How the yarn goes through these 2 loops, and then you get it off the needle, and la la la. And as I looked at it, I thought, well, my goodness, I can crochet this. So I have done a tutorial for those of you who are more comfortable with a crochet hook than knitting needles, 3 knitting needles at that. And I'll put the link in the description box as well. For this project, I'm using Caron's Simply Soft in the color Limelight. Now I want to put a brim on my hat, so I started with waste yarn. Just make sure you use a contrasting color. When you have a solid color, it's not a problem. But when you have one of these kind, choosing a color could be tricky, so I chose black, because you'll need to be able to see that row in between your waste yarn when you go to put a brim on. You'll also need to see it when you go to close up the top of the square hat, and that's where I am right now. Alright, so I finished 30 rows. I put some waste yarn on, then I did 30 rows. Now, I'm not going to disconnect my yarn. I'm going to stick my main color in here, release it from the carriage, and then I'm going to add some waste yarn right here. The main thing though is not to cut your main color. Now, I like to hold these together till the first stitch goes in. Remember that my green is still attached, so I'll tie my little knot carefully using the contrasting waste yarn. Now you'll want to get this undone. Now the thing to remember is that when you start with waste yarn, this waste yarn is going to have to be cut off, but when you end with waste yarn, you can easily just give it a yank and it'll just unravel itself. So that's really easy. So you use the term waste because this will be wasted, but this you technically could use again. All right, so I'm going to do about 5 rows, just because that's my number for waste yarn. It's what I like to do. And when you get enough rows that you feel comfortable cutting, then go ahead, snip your waste yarn, hold it, close your carriage, that's important, and then let's go a couple of rounds without any yarn coming through the carriage. It gets really easy the second round, and you see how everything just drops off, which is pretty handy dandy. Now this is how you can add any kind of type of top closure. As you have your waste yarn, and then you can put it on the knitting needles if you want to, by stringing through this top. Of course, if you want to go from this side, Barb 515 does a great tutorial where you pick up just one leg of each of the knitted stitches on this side, which is probably the proper way to do it. What do I mean probably? Is the proper way to do it. Now remember, because the top waste yarn can easily be yanked, make sure you don't pull it and lose all your stitches. Okay, that's why I do a good 5 stitches, just in case. 5 rows, just in case. Gives me a little cushion. And now we can do our 3-needle bind off with the crochet hook. Now, if you need help adding a crochet border, if you don't knit, then I have a link for a tutorial for that as well. A link for a crochet version of the 3-needle bind off, and then you just add embellishments as you like. I'm thinking about doing a Christmas one, and in the pom-poms I'm going to put some jingle bells because, you know, when you move around, that's half the fun of watching people wear these hats. I tried one with smaller palms, which I think is just as cute. But I have to say I'm more fond of the larger palms. It's just more whimsical to me. So that's up to you. But you add the embellishments of your choice and you're finished. It's that simple. A very quick hat.